Hello and welcome to Never on the Back Foot. Today we are yet on another live show, discussing the semi-finals of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, and we will be discussing the interesting matches between South Africa and Afghanistan, and of course India and England that happened yesterday. We'll be looking at stunning performances, unexpected twists, and basically just cover all the highlights, key moments, and performers from each of these epic showdowns. As we reach the end of our discussion, we'll also be, giving you a quick preview of the much awaited and anticipated India versus South Africa finals. Something, we are very excited about because India is finally in the finals, and ICC, trophy drought it has been, the conversation and discourse all around us. And joining me today on the podcast is, of course, Srijan. He is deeply passionate about cricket as a sport and prefers to, write or talk about the game to just about anyone and everyone. Probably that's how, we even struck our friendship. And Srijan's philosophy is basically that, one's love for the game shouldn't be defined by who is playing the sport. It should be rather on how the sport is played. Ultimately, no one is bigger than the sport. He enjoys reading autobiographies, biographies, and anecdotal accounts of cricketers and loves sharing it with us, which makes our lives better. And his favorite book to date is The Dhoni Touch, Unraveling the Enigma, that is Mahendra Singh Dhoni by Bharat Sundaresan. So, yeah, a warm welcome to you, Srijan, and thank you so much for joining us. And to all the viewers as well who have popped in, please ask your questions, share your thoughts, suggestions in the live chat, and we will make sure to address it through the course of our discussion. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So Srijan, now we have had two very exciting semi-finals, right? So heading into this bit, where the qualification for the top four, largely depended on the Super Eights. Did you get your predictions right about who would qualify for the semi-finals?
To be really honest, not quite because my top four predictions were India, Australia, England, and West Indies. West Indies because they were playing at
Same.
home, but Afghanistan were a surprise, and in a sense, not a surprise as well because a lot of their players have been playing franchise league matches all over the world, and that experience of playing the shortest format across the world has seemed to come to their fore, and that's why they are here today. And in a sense, I'm really happy for Afghanistan, but happy to have got that prediction wrong on my end.
Definitely. I think a lot of us did get it wrong because Afghanistan, making it to the semi-finals is not on our bingo cards, but certainly the kind of journey that they've had, we will discuss through the course of our discussion. But Srijan, before we get into the matches individually, now we've had these two blockbuster semi-finals. So what were your thoughts on the same, and did they kind of like live up to your expectations of, being those high-profile matches?
The first semi-final, the South Africa versus Afghanistan semi-final, was not quite matched up to my expectations because I expected Afghanistan to give a fight, given that they've beaten two top quality sides in New Zealand and Australia in the league phase and the Super Eights. So to for that semi-final to be a one-sided affair was slightly a downer, but really proud of the fight that Afghanistan have put through the World Cup, and it's only going to go onwards and upwards from here for Afghanistan. So really happy to see Afghanistan's journey, but the first semi-final was kind of a letdown. Uh,
Yeah, that is true because we were expecting, if not at least a high scoring match, we'd see some competition come through. But before, we discuss the South Africa versus Afghanistan, the first semi final, let's talk about that Afghanistan versus Bangladesh game, right? Which kind of ensured, like Australia was knocked out and Afghanistan made this entry. The match was, filled with a lot of drama. There was rain, and, the way Afghanistan kind of delayed things, Gulbarin night, getting that hamstring injury and everything that happened. So, Srijan, somewhere here, did you also think, that spirit of cricket discussion merits a cause here?
no, nothing of that sort. I think Afghanistan deserved to play the tactics that they played, rightfully so. And then for Bangladesh, I think they never really stood in for a fight. They never really arrived to play the contest. And despite batting second, which has an advantage when weather is around, they never really seemed to take that into their advantage and put Afghanistan on the back foot. And credit to Afghanistan, they had the situational awareness that rain was quite around, and then At that moment,
Yeah.
for Gulbuddin Naib to do that and then to come back with the ball and deliver, I think it was a quite good performance. So, I mean, no space for spirit of cricket in this discussion, but I think Afghanistan deserve to do what they do, rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, they've had quite the fairy tale journey this World Cup. We've seen them, grow from strength to strength every single edition of the World Cup, and even in bilateral cricket. And now, putting this performance here, they certainly will have a lot of heart to take away. But again, just putting in context, the South Africa versus Afghanistan game, as you rightly said, it was a rather dull affair because it was such a low-scoring match. We saw Afghanistan, just throw it away at one point, and we saw this run chase executed to perfection by South Africa there. So, what were your thoughts on what kind of transpired in that match and everything?
To be honest, when Afghanistan batted first, I felt that it was a right decision given their composition of the side and their strengths. Because Afghanistan, as a side, if you look at it, their bowling strength outweighs their batting strength, and in that sense, to put runs on the board for the bowlers to come and defend seemed to be a right call. But the conditions in the Caribbean are starkly different in the morning games and the evening games. In the evening games, we've seen in the CPL as well, the ball tends to talk in the first few overs, and that's where the first semi-final being an evening game, the ball did talk in the first few overs, and Afghanistan lost the plot right over there. And then once you lose wickets in the power play in the first 6 overs, it's really difficult to come back into the game in the later half. So, uh, right decision, backing their strengths and backing their bowling group to deliver uh, for them, given their batting is not up to the point. But again, these things happen, and these things are learnings for better things to come in the future. And when Afghanistan might be placed in such a scenario in the future, they might think differently and do differently, and that's how our learning grows around. But credit to the South African bowlers as well. They bowled in the right areas, got the ball to swing a bit. Marco Janssen, first off, was really good, and then Shamshi came around and then delivered with the ball as well. So, uh, from the perspective of South Africa, the bowling and the batting really delivered. And for Afghanistan, it's only going to be a learning, and then the next time that they are in this scenario, they'll have better things to do.
Fair enough. That's actually a way to look at it. And to just pick your brains on this aspect, like, Afghanistan, of course, won the toss and they opted to bat first. So do you think it was a wise choice? Because as you rightly said, they have their strengths in bowling and batting, although the openers have done fairly well, but this is against South Africa, a quality attack, right? So do you think it was a wise choice to actually bat there?
Yes, 100%. They did not fear the opposition. They did not think that they needed to bowl first because it is South Africa that is the opposition. To be honest, if South Africa had batted first and got to 160 or 170, it would have been a difficult chase for Afghanistan because their batting has not really stood up to that potential in this World Cup. But the bowlers, I think they really backed them to deliver the goods. And when the batters faltered, the bowlers didn't have pretty much nothing to do. So uh, again, it's only going to be a learning. If I were Afghanistan, and if I were in the think tank, I would definitely have batted first.
Makes sense. And, although now hindsight is a wonderful teacher and would tell us that, they had that forgettable outing with the bat, getting skittled for just 56. If you had to just, do a post-mortem of that batting effort, region, what do you think went wrong? I mean, the obvious ones are, losing wickets in clumps, not building on those partnerships. But somewhere else, did you feel that something else was like massively lacking? They were not able to adapt to the conditions there?
Yes, primarily to the swinging ball. I think they faced a little bit of a difficulty to adapt to those conditions, and before one could even stand up, most of the innings was already over. So, if one batter could have stood up and took control of the innings and shepherded the rest of the batting around him, that would have been a great choice. But that was not to be. So, batting wise, if one batter could have delivered and stood the ground and then look to take the game to 10 overs, 12 overs, and then look and assess the conditions, that would have been a better choice for Afghanistan, but unfortunately, that was not to be.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's why, you need to give due credit to the South African bowling effort. I mean, the way Marco Jansen, the way, Kagiso Rabada and Tabraiz Shamsi just came to the party, stepped up when South Africa most needed them to, with those remarkable bowling performances, is a story in itself, right? So, what do you make of their bowling effort? And somewhere it just yielded all of those benefits?
I think it was a terrific bowling effort. If you look at Marco Jansen and Kagiso Rabada, uh, their IPL performances versus how they performed here in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
uh, it is a stark difference because in the IPL it is mostly flat decks, and then all the bowlers, regardless of how good they are or how high standards they set for themselves, all of them seem to go for runs year after year. But come here when the bowlers got favorable conditions, especially when you have that kind of lift that most of the Caribbean wickets generate and the bounce that these wickets generate. Being the tall bowlers that they are, they seem to extract that bounce and also swing, which is a deadly combination. So that was a remarkable bowling performance by the Pacers, and then the left arm breast spinner Shamsi as well coming into the party was a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, the bowling effort was so fascinating that somewhere, the total could have been easily chased. And that's pretty much what happened because South Africa chased down that total. You had Riza Hendricks who stepped up. You had Aiden Markram as well, patiently seeing through that run chase. So, what did you make of that batting effort? And somewhere, did you feel the match was done and dusted? It's a low total, and South Africa was anyways going to win it?
Yeah, definitely. And the way both Riza Enriques and the captain Markham played, that is the kind of chase you want to do when you have a small total. One of them anchoring the innings, you know it's a low total and you will eventually get to it. You don't want any further hiccups. And they played the conditions really well and ultimately got to the winning score. They played the conditions well, and that's why they are on the winning side today. Uh, couldn't have done it better from the batting perspective as well.
Absolutely. And somewhere, I think you've also seen this discourse on social media and everywhere of how there's this title of chokers, right, to South Africa. And now their men's team, finally makes to their first ever T20 World Cup finals. So, what are your thoughts on that, reason, the kind of journey that they have traversed, carrying this baggage of having this chokers title and of everything to coming to this stage where, they can actually be potentially world beaters as well?
Yeah, I mean, on a lighter note, this final is going to be a really remarkable final in the sense that on one side you have a team that's been carrying generational trauma for the last 32 years because ever since 92 when South Africa got back into international cricket, they've not gone past the semi-final. And then India on the other side for the last decade and decade and a half, we've not won that ICC trophy that's been elusive to us. South Africa, I feel they needed the rub of green on their side at some point, and it's nice to see it's finally coming around with South Africa making it to the final. Hope we have a good final, and we'll speak about that in the later parts as well. But it's finally nice to see South Africa break the shackles. I think it's a huge mental trauma that people carry into a World Cup when you know the press is going to write you off, the fans are going to write you off if you lose yet another semi-final. But just to break the shackles and go one step forward is a huge step. They just have one more step to conquer and take over the world. Tomorrow's game will be an answer to that, and it's going to be an interesting final. But I'm really happy for South Africa and the fight that they've put through this tournament as well. It makes a very good effort to come to the final. It's not going to be easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, this unit under Eden Markram has been brilliant, right? I think all the departments, you have the batting and the bowling department that's kind of firing, and you have these performers who are stepping up when the team needs it the most. So yeah, South Africa definitely do make themselves very formidable contenders, for India in that finals. We will talk about that a little later. But before we move on to the India versus England match region, let's also look at Afghanistan, right? Got to spare them a thought. With all the political turmoil and everything that's happening back home, they still, manage to script performances like this. So, yeah, Afghanistan will have a lot of heart to take from this performance, especially, during this World Cup. And do you think they'll aspire for a stronger comeback, and hopefully it kind of, paves the way and opens up a lot more bilateral cricket for them?
Yeah, definitely. Good that you raised that. We touch upon Afghanistan. Given where they're coming from, it's been a fantastic journey. To think that not even 10, 12 years back, they were in the lower divisions of the ICC League cricket stages, and then now to be a full member, to be on the verge of dominance in the last 10 to 12 months. They've beaten all the top sides, England, Australia, New Zealand, and they're really I mean, they got the better of Afghanistan. They got the better of Pakistan. I am sorry. Uh, they tried to get the better of Pakistan in the ODI World Cup as well, and they just narrowly missed that. So, this second generation of Afghanistan cricketers uh, definitely show a lot of promise for, expecting a lot more from Afghanistan in the future. And as a country, if you listen to Rashid Khan or a lot of these stars who play around the world, they tell you about a lot of the talent that's going to come through Afghanistan, and that's definitely very exciting to listen to and look forward to. Uh, this second generation of Afghanistan cricketers are definitely scripting history, and it will be etched in the history books for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, all of us will hope, this serves as that catalyst to, again, bring up a lot of talent to the forefront from Afghanistan, because right now we see so many good match performers who are, playing across leagues. Playing in leagues across the world as well. And here's hoping, Afghanistan does get those opportunities in bilateral cricket, and they can make a name for themselves. And just, diverting our attention to the India versus England match now, what were your expectations coming into the match? I'll be very honest with you. I was thinking India might not, possibly win it. It's going to be England who's going to make it through. Again, this is coming from all the past baggage and, everything that has transpired in the past, not looking at the 2007 World Cup. But yeah, Srijan, what were you thinking about this match?
To be honest, it took a little bit of time for me to recover from November 19th,
Yeah.
personally. But this World Cup, this tournament, I felt that things were starting afresh. Even though we had gone back to our tried and tested formula of having Virat and Rohit at the top, I think things were settling down. And in these kind of conditions, I don't think you will see a lot of 200 plus scores. I think even in this World Cup, I don't think we've hardly seen any 200 plus score, to be honest. Uh, and these conditions don't demand such kind of cricket to be played as well. And with the kind of cricket that, with the kind of T20 cricket that India is playing at the moment, I felt that the Caribbean conditions would suit India. The slow wickets would let our spinners come into the play as well. And then we have someone like a Bumrah, who's an all format, all condition legend that we have right now. So coming into the match, I did feel that India had an upper hand, especially after England lost the toss and chose to bowl first. I know that they did that considering the weather forecast, but in the morning games in the Caribbean, batting first seemed to have generated results positively for the team rather than batting second. And I knew that if India had got anywhere between 160 to 180, it'll be really difficult for for England to come back into the game, and that's exactly what happened. We got to 170 odd, and then England never really arrived in the chase. So I had really positive expectations for India, and I do really carry those positive expectations into the final as well. Hope things come into our way, and hope the elusive trophy comes back to us. But yeah, to be honest, I really had good feelings about India.
Wow, Srijan, that's very nice to hear, because most of the people, I was chatting through, like through the match before, after, and everything, they had very negative feelings like, India's possibly not going to win this, we've lost it at the toss and everything. And I'm pretty sure the Google servers also might have crashed because of the number of Indians, just searching for what are the conditions in Guyana. going to look like. And fortunately, the rain interruptions weren't as much. I mean, we didn't lose any overs, so at least I take that as a positive. But just looking at the match again, now India batted first. They got to this competitive total of 171 for 7. So again, were you convinced with this total, and with the way Rohit and Surya were batting? Did you think that 200 was possible, or were you still convinced that hey, that 170, 180 is still a pretty good total?
To be honest, again, 171 was not a very bad total. We had a few interruptions in between, and
Yeah.
our batting innings was a lot start and stop kind of an innings, and therefore to build momentum through those phases was a little difficult for our batters. But again, as I said, if India got anywhere between 160 to 180, I knew that it's going to be really difficult for England to come back, and they did just that. Batting first, they assessed the conditions really well, and despite it being a stop-start innings, both Surya and Rohit, played their part and got us to a winning total. And I didn't feel the need for anything extra. Possibly 200 was on the cards at one point, and possibly if not for the rain interventions, I think carrying the momentum that Rohit had, we would have got to 200. But at the end, we did not need 200, right? 171 was quite a mountain to climb for England, so I was convinced with the total.
Makes sense because although we did face a few hurdles to get to that total because India lost Kohli and Pant early on. So was that a cause for concern for you somewhere? And overall too, right? There's just been so much chatter about Virat Kohli's form and the lack of it, and Rishabh Pant being slotted in that number three, is that the ideal position for him and everything. So what have you made of it, Srijan? Do you think this is some sort of a stopgap arrangement, a long-term planning process or so?
To be honest, I would not be really worried about Kohli's form because, as Rahul Dravid said as well, whenever Kohli has got out, he has got out going for the big shot, and that intent is in the right place, and that's what really matters. And Kohli is a big match player. Come at the hour, come at the man, and he will deliver when needed. So, not really worried about Kohli's form in general, and I don't see why people would be worried about Kohli as well. Talking about Punt, I think moving him to number three was a masterstroke because that's where he was ideally, or he should be ideally slotted in a T20 setup for India because that really gives him the freedom to explode in case of an early wicket to come into the first 6 overs. That gives him the space and the leverage to exploit the field restrictions and make the most of it. And then once he's set, he what kind of a damage he can do to the bowlers, especially the spinners in the middle overs. So batting Punt at three was a masterstroke, and that's sort of delivered for India as well. And then going back to Kohli, even though he has got out a few times and not scoring the number of runs that people would have expected him to score, his low scores have not impacted the team in such a way that we faltered. Right, the others around Kohli have capitalized and delivered for us when the team needed it to be done. And then Kohli, as I said, is a big match player. So come the final, I think he will deliver on the big stage, and I really hope for that. Uh, but yeah, Kohli and Pant getting out early was not really a concern because Rohit and Surya stepped up, and then we did have cameos at the end as well. So
Yeah, I mean that does make sense. But just carrying on this discussion of like Virat Kohli, a lot of people feel this might be his last set of international encounters for India in the T20 format. So, Srijan, do you also believe in the same line of thought that maybe time's up for him in the T20 format? And it's time to blood new youngsters into that team, give them those opportunities, and see where that kind of goes.
possibly so, but I mean, I would be of the opinion that you need some youngsters to get into the side and capture their positions, but you can't really rule out a player like Kohli, right? I think with the next World Cup being in India and Sri Lanka, the next T20 World Cup that is in 26, being in India and Sri Lanka, and the wickets being placid in India, with the way Kohli is batted in this IPL and with the kind of intent that he's shown around, possibly he might stick around, but one of Kohli or Rohit will have to move on going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a really tricky one. I think the outcome of this finals, will give us an indication of where that sort of pans out, and the reality we'll probably have to grapple with. But Srijan, again, just looking at this match and the context, I think one more positive was the impetus, right? Coming in from that lower middle order, you had the likes of, Pandya, you had Jaddu and Akshar, give those handy contributions that propelled India to that competitive total. So somewhere do you see some positive vibes coming from this like middle order and lower middle order that in case we lose those wickets in clumps, you still have batters coming in later who can chip in?
Yeah, definitely. First, I would like to talk about Pandya. Uh, to be honest, I didn't really know what kind of a headspace he was entering this tournament with, given the way he was treated in the IPL, the entire team performed, and the entire saga that surrounded Mumbai Indians. But kudos to him that he shut that noise and really focused on what matters, and that's shown on the field as well, with the ball or with the bat. He seemed to deliver when India needed him to. Aksar again has been one of the finds for me in this tournament. Him stepping up has been a really good positive for India with the ball and again with the bat, and then in the field as well. The catch that he took a couple of matches back was really phenomenal. And then lastly about Jadeja, there were a lot of questions raised about Jadeja's place in this side. I was one of them who also felt that he's not really delivered neither with the bat nor with the ball in this tournament. So I was thinking whether we should play an extra pacer in Siraj and have Kuldeep and Akshar as our spinners. But again, with India and the way that they've gone about this tournament, they seem to have a very fixed formula and they don't like changing it a lot. They would prefer the batting cushion that Jadeja offers at number 8 or number 7, wherever he comes in. So the number of all rounders, the three all rounders here, I think when the team ultimately needed them to do deliver on the big stage, they did come and deliver. So there's nothing much we can ask beyond what they did in the last match.
Certainly, because I think it's their contributions, that kind of propelled India to that total of 171. And even just looking at England, I think yesterday we were playing with four pacers who delivered a net total of 12 overs. And do you somewhere think they missed a trick or two by not playing that extra spirit, or just give Moeen Ali some overs? Because I think even in the post-match presentation also we had Butler talk about not coming in with that extra spinner. So do you think, Srijan, that was a cause for concern and something that can be evaluated upon going ahead based on the conditions and all that?
Yeah, I think that's where England missed a trick, not playing the second spinner or not giving Moeen a few overs with the ball, because the spinners had a say in this particular encounter. And if you look at India's composition as a side as well, we've always carried the third spinner. He, I mean, Jadeja being the third spinner, he would have not. I mean, he has not delivered on the big stage with the ball, but having the cushion of a third spinner in these conditions is always ideal. And India have seemed to lean on that strategy, and that's got the better for them in terms of results. And that's why I think England missed a trick not playing the second spinner or not giving them a more prominent role, because the spinners did have a say with the ball, and then I think ultimately that's where, apart from the batting, I think that's where England lost the game with the ball as well.
Yeah, certainly, and that kind of did, dent their prospects of restricting India to a lower total. But focusing on the run chase as well, right? Again, we saw how the England batters really did not turn up, and the loss of Phil Salt and Butler early on was far from ideal. So, there in which reason did you think that the match was done and dusted, and the possibility of a comeback was just seeming very impossible?
Yeah, I would agree to that statement, because if you look at how teams have constructed their innings, or successful teams have constructed their innings, uh, in the Caribbean, they've always looked to play it safe in the first 6 overs, consolidate in the middle phase, and then explode in the last phase. And once a side loses 2 or 3 wickets in the first initial power play phase itself, it's really going to be difficult, because the batters that are coming in next are faced with that much amount of more pressure to stabilize the innings and take it forward. And ultimately, when time comes to explode, there's not a lot of power left. So when England lost three wickets in the power play, that's where I thought it's going to be really difficult for England as well to come back, and that's where they lost the match with the fact. If they had consolidated in the first 6 overs, if one of them had carried on, I think England would have got a better chance, or we would have seen a much closer encounter. But when you lose three wickets in the Caribbean in the first 6 overs, there's absolutely no chance of coming back.
Yeah, and I think this also kind of reinforces the belief, right, that there's just so much over dependence on Phil Salt and Joss Butler to step up and be the fulcrum of any run chase or
Yes.
situations where England has to bat first. Because later, even with the dismissals of Johnny Best, you had Moeen Ali and Sam Curran, just getting dismissed, England's collapse had already begun, and a comeback, of course, seemed far from impossible. But Srijan, even with Harry Brook and Liam Livingston there at the crease, did you feel that because of the pressure and just that the Indian bowlers were being so good that chasing the total still seemed very much impossible?
Yeah, I mean, when you lose wickets up front and then come the pressure mounts on the middle order, I think it becomes really difficult. And we have someone like a Bumrah who's a death over expert, someone like a Kuldeep who's been really good through the middle over phase. Akshar as well has made the ball talk on occasions. Uh, with the top three not capitalizing, the middle order really faced the pressure. And when you're chasing a big score in the Caribbean, it always leads to more failures than successes. So even with the power packed middle order that England had, because they lost those wickets in the first phase, coming back never really seemed to be an option for England, even with the firepower and the big names that they possessed.
Yeah, and that's where that match was pretty much done and dusted because Jofra Archer was just at the other end, waiting for batting partners to just be there and give him that support. But the total was just too much to chase. And again, credits to the Indian bowlers, right? The way they stepped up. I think a large credit for that has to go to the way Akshar Patel stepped up. You had Jasprit Bumrah, you had Kuldeep Yadav, just so many characters coming and delivering again when India most needed them to. So again, Srijan, this is great signs heading into that all-important final, and this trio just seems to be getting things right. Oh, plus Ashdeep, right? He's
Yeah.
also your unsung hero there.
Yeah, truly. The bowling group, the four of them, with Hardik being the fifth bowler, the bowling group has really performed as a collective and delivered the goods for India. And a large part of India being in the final, the credit has to go to the bowlers because in this particular World Cup, the bat has not stood up, or the bat has not dominated as much as the ball has. So the bowlers going into the final, all of them got uh, have gotten wickets. All of them have gathered confidence and are in good form heading into the final. That really augurs well. And then plus Bumrah, how do I go without speaking about Bumrah? Match after match, he just seems to never give up and deliver the goods for India. And I feel that we are all really privileged to watch Bumrah in this phase for India.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think we've had a better fast bowler emerge in the last decade for us. So, incredibly blessed and privileged to be watching this particular bowling group. This particular bowling group largely delivered in the ODI World Cup as well, but come the T20 World Cup, they just seem to take it a step forward, and that's shown in the results as well.
Absolutely agreed with you on that one, and hopefully, we can see this bowling performance, carry on to the finals as well because we square off against South Africa. But before we preview that match, Srijan, let's spare a thought to England, who kind of made it to the semi-final and were at the wrong side of the result and would obviously be upset, right? Because they've done a lot of things right. Performed reasonably well in that group stages in the Super Eights and everything. So, what do you think will be their next step of action? Again, would you see like massive changes or probably just, an overall in some strategies here and there?
One particular change that I see is Joss Butler possibly stepping down because
Ooh.
uh, the ODI World Cup was not as per their expectations. They never really stepped up. The T20 World Cup as well. think England were kind of middling through the entire phase, and then uh, in the semi-final they ultimately gave up totally. So Butler at the top, possibly going out, is one thought that comes up to me. But largely the core group of bowlers and batters that they have, uh, they might continue for some more time. But Butler at the top is a question mark for me.
Fair enough. And before we move on to our India versus South Africa preview, let's just take this comment from Nikhil, which says Akshar Patel deserved the Kohinoor Diamond itself as his Player of the Match award. And I think Srijan, earlier in our conversation too, you mentioned how Akshar Patel has been this find of the season. Even social media, everyone is like, Bapu, he did this, he did that. But a word on Akshar Patel and his contributions.
Akshar has been one player who you could always bet your goods on. And with Jadeja not stepping up quite as we expected, the left arm spinner, left hand bats role has been done to the perfection by Akshar Patel. And again, the rise of Akshar Patel in this particular tournament uh, has to be spoken about a lot more and has to be given a lot more importance than it is currently. But really happy for the way he's shaped up. He seems to have the right length and lines to bowl at various phases, and then with the bat as well. When the chips are down and you need a quick cameo, he's delivered for you. So you couldn't have really asked for more from Akshar. So really happy with the way he's performed in this World Cup.
Yeah. And hoping, he continues to get opportunities for India in this shortest format as well, because we just see so much competition. And I think during the World Cup itself, the squad for the Zimbabwe series was announced, and I was like, wow, this is another fresh crop of
Yeah.
players, who have everything in them to challenge our current players. And it's always great, to have problems of abundance. Like, I'm a firm believer in that. And yeah, let's move on to our next segment, which is the preview of the elusive India versus South Africa finals. And I think here's where a quick plug-in for Akshat's comment makes sense, which says battle of the unbeaten teams for the championship, India versus South Africa. Both the teams have had quite the remarkable journey. When you look at India's journey so far, of course, they haven't been challenged as yet because they've just been such a formidable unit, putting performances after performances, giving us glimpses of that ODI World Cup performance where they went unbeaten and the final is whatever happened. Law of averages caught up with us. But Srijan, just let's look at India's journey so far. What is your assessment? Because so far it's been the perfect World Cup. We've had a few challenges, but nothing to challenge us enough to, cause us to break apart and everything. But overall, what would your thoughts be, and players who have stood out?
This World Cup kind of eerily is very similar to the ODI World Cup that we played a few months back. The team stepping up as a collective, the batting group firing, the bowling group firing, and then uh, the only positive thing that you hope for is come at the final this time, the result will be different. But as a group, both from a batting perspective and a bowling perspective, we've had players step up when required. We've had Surya Kumar perform in the final. We've perform in the semi-final. We've had him also play a few important knocks when the team needed it to be done for the team. So when you look at social media discourses, you look at players being singled out and being trolled for not performing on the big stage. But most often than not, this time around, the players are proved us wrong. Punt coming in at number three, that's been a game changer. Akshay Patel, as we've spoken about previously, that's been a revelation of sorts.
Yeah.
And then Bumrah, how do we go without speaking about Bumrah? We've spoken about him. Arshdeep has very quietly performed to his best of his abilities, though the spotlight was not much on no, Arshdeep. He's done his duties to the fullest. So as a collective, I think uh, we couldn't have really asked for more as a team. Uh, as I said earlier as well, this time we only hope that the result is on our side. But it's really good to see the way India have challenged their way through the final. Uh, and as you pointed out as well, I don't think we've had a really tough competition. It's just that we've been so dominant on all aspects that uh, the way to the final has seemed easy, but definitely not. It's not been an easy task. The the group has to come together, and it has come together to deliver us results, and we are here today in the final just because of that.
Yeah, because on the one hand, you have India, where they've had this great journey so far in the World Cup, giving us glimpses of that 2023 World Cup. And you have South Africa, right? And just look at the campaign they've had. Very close matches versus Nepal versus Bangladesh, just having those scrappy wins, many people calling them imposters in that,
Mm.
Super 8s, and now to that semi-final spot and even the finals and everything. They've just battled all of those odds, off the field, on the field, and everything, and made it to this final. First for their men's team, and Aiden Markram is your captain. He's coming off of a very like okayish IPL, so to say, at least based on his standards. But Srijan, if you had to assess South Africa's journey so far, again, what are your takeaways? And similarly, players who have rightly stepped up and delivered.
As you mentioned rightly, a lot of the wins that South Africa had through the group phase, the Super Eights, were scrapey wins that with a very tight margin, right? But at the end of the day, a win on against your name is what matters, and that was done brilliantly by the team. A couple of players that I can mention who've stood out for me personally. One of them being Marco Janssen with the ball. He's really had an impact up front, and then Riza Enriques as well, because he's the kind of a player who can play you the double role, who can play you the anchor, and then also once he's set, take on the bowling and give a good flourish as well. So these couple of players, for me personally, in this World Cup, from a South African perspective, have been good. And then the bowlers as well, Rabada, Shamsi, all of them who've got opportunities have delivered when needed. So uh, a good collective performance for South Africa as well.
Yeah, I mean, now that we've looked at India and South Africa's journey so far in isolation, it's quite literally the battle of heavyweights. And just looking at the kind of matches that both these teams have had in the past, in T20 World Cups, have been quite nerve wracking, like edge of the seat thriller sort of matches. And I hope this match also kind of lives up to the billing, and hopefully India wins. At least the fan in me would hope for India to win. But at the end of the day, we want to witness good cricket. So, Srijan, what would your key battles and matchups be like for this particular encounter?
A couple of matchups that I can think of right at the top of my head. The first matchup that I can think of is Marco Janssen and Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma's
Yeah,
weakness against left arm pace has been spoken about a lot, or could I say, blown out of proportions of sorts. But the way he took over
absolutely.
Stark in the previous encounter against Australia was phenomenal to see, and it never really felt that he had a weakness against left arm pace. So how he delivers up front, and he has been Rohit in this World Cup has been the one who wants to take on the bowling up front, set the platform for the batters to follow. So how he takes that matchup against Janssen is going to be seen. And then the second matchup that I can think of is how our spinners perform against the South African middle order, because we have players like Klaasen who can take down spin, who are designated spin hitters. So these two key matchups is what I look forward to in the match.
Yeah, definitely exciting. And even your expectations from the finals region, what do you think is going to happen? Like the team winning the toss will probably opt to bowl first. Do you think chasing is better, or like batting first could also possibly be a thing?
Again, the final is going to be a day game, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at the results in this World Cup, in day games, batting first has sort of been preferred by teams, and teams have emerged victorious. Even in Barbados, the conditions, I was just looking at that before coming here. Uh, it's not going to be a huge run fest. 200 plus has been scored only thrice in all the T20s that have been played in this venue from the inception of the format till about today. So 200 has been barged only thrice. So definitely are not going to see a 200 plus score. Anywhere between 170, 180, the 160 to 180 range is sort of par in the Caribbean in most venues, and that's possibly what we're going to see in the final as well. Uh, and again, win the toss, bat first, runs on the board on an important final is it's going to be of huge value. So whichever team wins the toss, I would see them batting first.
Fair enough. I mean, it gives you a lot of freedom and to just go there and
Yeah.
express yourself and see the total you can put up. I know this is not the IPL and you don't have like an impact player rule,
Yeah.
but that kind of freedom. But we've still seen teams, do reasonably well batting first as well. In fact, India's semi-final versus England was not a bad it was a good competitive total. And Srijan, also let me get your thoughts on the ideal playing 11s for both these teams. I think it would be fairly simple one because they would want to go unchanged. Or do you still see some last-minute changes being sprung by either sides?
No, not really. I think both teams would like to carry forward with the winning combination. India have not tinkered with their side much from the Super Eights till about the semi-finals. So unless barring injury to either sides, I don't see any major changes coming up because for both sides in the semi-final and the Super Eight phase as well, the bowlers and the batters have delivered collectively, and there's nothing much that is a cause of concern or is a complaint for both sides. So I don't see any changes from either side.
Yeah, makes sense. And as of tomorrow, at this exact time, the match would have probably, already started and we would see a few balls down. But Srijan, the final question to you, the million-dollar question. Everyone wants to know answers to this. Who is going to win this match? Like, do you have that final prediction, or do you just want to go in with an open mind, see how things kind of flow, and not just jinx it?
No, I am going to be really brave enough and say India is going to win, not because I support the team, because at the end of the day, we just need that rub of green on our sides as well. Uh, this group of Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid, they performed their best on both occasions, on in both World Cups, and
Yeah.
we just hope for the result to be in our way, optimistically. And this is going to be Rahul Dravid's final assignment with the team. So a winning send off is nothing can beat a winning send off, right? So
Yeah.
just on those two aspects, I feel India is going to win. And yeah, I mean, uh, no biases here, honestly. I think India is the better side going into the final.
Yeah, I think we're all manifesting an India win. I think more than us, the fans have just been, waiting for this elusive win and a trophy to, define success would deserve it. So yeah, fingers crossed. Let's see how the World Cup final kind of plays out, and will it be that farewell to Rahul Dravid and potentially, some of the senior players in this team? Only time will tell. Hopefully, we get some answers tomorrow, which is satisfactory, and we're all happy. And yeah, Srijan, that pretty much does conclude our discussion as well. Thank you so much for joining me once again. You've been such an ardent fan and like a person in our community on Never on the Back Foot. So thank you so much for all your contributions and all our conversations through the audio
Yeah,
podcast. Right to here has always been special, and this one also is. So thank you so much for that, and to all our viewers as well who joined in. Thank you so much for your questions, and if you're tuning in later, please share your comments in the chat box, and we will definitely check that out. And we will be doing live shows like this. Hopefully, you'll see me happy tomorrow after India wins. So please do tune into those live shows as well. You can follow and subscribe to Never in the Backfoot here if you're here for the first time. And we have an active social media presence, so don't miss out on that. And yeah, guys, that's all for now. Thank you so much. And until next time, bye and take care.
thank you so much for having me, Neha. It's been a
Cheers.
very good conversation. Thank you.
Likewise. Bye, Srijan.
Bye.